in the United States, we supposedly have the right to freedom of expression. People often use this term too broadly. For example, if you're a student and you get detention for distributing flyers saying Mr. Smith is a doo-doo head, you can't lean on your right to free speech there. What the First Amendment protects against is the ability of Congress to restrict the press or the right of individuals to speak freely, especially on political matters. An easy way to remember it is, if the government is involved, that speech is supposedly protected. If your speech is not about the government, it's less clear. The First Amendment sets limits only on the relationship between the US government and its people. On paper, you're allowed to refuse to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, you're allowed to burn the flag, say we're run by oligarchs, criticize the president, all that stuff. We all on the same page? Now, here's the part where I need you to stick with me for a second, because this may sound strange at first, but it'll make sense, I promise. This ability to grant freedoms, such as the right to criticize the government, is what marks a truly powerful state. A state with absolute control. Nations that crack down on everything, they're weak. They're not in control of their people. A country like the United States, which is guilty of the most hideous crimes in history, which is in fact run by oligarchs, which routinely overthrows democratically elected heads of state and installs puppet dictators, knows that none of these things matter. Since the end of World War II, the US has been the uncontested economic and cultural hegemon. It is the sole world superpower, at least for now. American movies grace theaters around the globe. American designer brands are coveted by all. American politics affect the entire world. And what is the myth that the US sells? That Americans are the freest people on earth. That here you can be anything you want with just a little hard work. That we are a bastion of democracy, the shining city on a hill. And while that's obviously not the case, it would be much more obviously not the case if we didn't have these nominal rights like the right to freedom of expression. I get that comment all the time. Well, if it's so bad here, how come you're allowed to say all this stuff? Because that is power. The US government knows that a YouTube channel like mine is no real threat. I may help funnel people into socialist organizations, but I don't have any real power to upset the status quo. And so critical speech like mine is allowed up until the point where people start to act on it. Colleges across the country have classes on the evils of imperialism and fascism and police violence. And that's all fine until the students decide to actually organize and do something about those evils. Then they're on the receiving end of the imperialism and the fascism and the police violence. Anyway, the bottom line is this. The problem of people being imprisoned, brutalized by police, or literally assassinated for the crime of telling the truth is bigger than one aerospace company. The United States is the most powerful country on earth, and it's manufactured consent for all its crimes by selling the myth that it's better than the alternatives. Because at least here we can protest and push for change. Except, we can't. Complain online? Sure, fine. Bring the receipts. Show videos of US war crimes, expose the criminal negligence of a massive corporation, threaten the capitalist status quo, then you're in trouble. And the worst part is, we all know this is happening. When people like Jeffrey Epstein get killed because they have dirt on some powerful people, we all laugh and wink and say, oh yeah, he totally didn't get assassinated. We know what's going on there. We all know about COINTELPRO and Mockingbird, the CIA operations to surveil and propagandize American citizens and undermine civil rights movements. We know all about the horrific and shady things our government gets up to. We make movies and books and video games about all these things. We commodify the very things we're afraid to admit exist in real life. It's the same story with the Boeing whistleblowers. People are making jokes online because they feel like it's obvious what's going on, but there's nothing we can do about it. What can normal people do in the face of a country that has sold itself as a benevolent utopia when we all see what's happening, but no one can stop it? The Boeing saga is still unfolding, and we'll likely never know the truth about these suspicious deaths. This is shaping up to be just the latest in a long series of stories of normal people daring to speak up, to tell the truth even when it's dangerous. People like Assange, Snowden, Manning, MLK, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, people like John Barnett and Joshua Dean. They may be household names today, but when they chose to stand up for what they knew was right, they were just regular people like you and me. People with a conscience who had the bravery to say enough is enough. And a world that treats these people as criminals simply for telling the truth is a world that desperately needs a reboot.